Welcome to this video on how to resolve conflict in the workplace. It was about 8 months ago, and I started working with a couple of managers in an organization, and there was quite a bit of conflict in that organization. And so we applied a lot of the things that we're going to learn in this video. And I tell you what, the response that I got from them was really favorable. They really liked the information, and they said it really helped them to deal with that conflict. So I'm hoping the same thing for you. Marshall Goldsmith wrote the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And a lot of what trips people up as they move up in their career is their inability to deal with conflict and have strong relationships with people. So what we're going to talk about today is going to help you not only now, but as you move up in your organization. So I think the thing that the people really liked about this information that I worked with is that it's a process, that there was a specific set of steps and methods that they could use. So let's reflect on our natural conflict style. So as we go through these questions, feel free to pause the video and answer the questions so you get a real feel for what your natural style is. So my natural style of dealing with conflict tends to be passive. Go ahead and rate yourself. My natural style of dealing with conflict tends to be aggressive. I am respectful to others in the way that I deal with conflict. I show strength in the way that I deal with conflict. I can be in conflict with someone and they still know that I care about them. I grow from situations in which I have conflict with someone. So as you assess yourself, how'd you do? Were you able to identify your natural conflict style? What goals might you set for yourself in dealing with conflict? So what I've learned over the past few years is that we all have negative conflict styles. There are times in our lives when we're under a great deal of stress or pressure and we divert to a negative style. So let's uncover what those 5 styles are and what they mean. The first negative conflict style is the critical style. And the critical style is where we're under pressure from conflict. We naturally are critical of others. So our language might be, if they would just do what they're supposed to do, I wouldn't have to deal with all this. What that does is it gives us the false sense of superiority and it makes the other people feel lesser. The second style is almost the opposite of critical. It's the placating style. And the placating style values peace at all costs, even to the level of their own integrity. And so someone with a placating style will take the blame. They'll just say, hey, it's my fault, even when it isn't. And the results for that person is that they might feel bitterness or frustration over time. And the results for others might be that they feel a false sense of superiority. The third style is the rationalizing style, sometimes referred to as the super intellectual style. And this person likes to take conflict and put it in a box, an intellectual box. And they might say something like, I don't know why we are all getting emotional about this. Why don't we just work this through logically? So the results for rationalizing style is that they live in their head and rarely in their heart, and they miss out on abundant living. The results for others is that their emotional side is not paid attention to, and they can feel they live with unresolved issues. The avoiding style or withdrawing is the person who just won't go there. They will not go to conflict at all costs. They might say, what problem? There isn't a problem. The results for them is they lived with a lot of unresolved issues, and for others, they're unable to move forward. And finally, the clowning style. We probably all know someone who, as soon as there's some conflict, immediately they crack a joke. And while this can be funny and might lift the mood a bit, what happens to this person is that they fail to mature with conflict situations, and the results for others is that they feel diminished or unimportant. So when you think of the times you've communicated poorly with your colleagues, how often do you fall into each of the negative conflict styles? So how often do you fall into each category? Maybe you spend about 70% of time in the critical and 30% in avoiding. Maybe you do a percentage of each. How would you say that your style breaks out in terms of 100%? Go ahead and spend some time identifying your style. In addition to negative conflict styles, there's also negative communication patterns that can hold us back in situations. The first negative communication pattern is polarizing. And polarizing is expressing thoughts or opinions more strongly than we actually believe. The second negative communication pattern is reacting. And reacting is really when we hand over our power to someone else. We allow someone else's action to control our behavior. So an example of a reaction is if someone came up to you and said, "Hey, I just thought I would like to tell you something," and the news that they give you totally alters your behavior. Maybe you start to treat someone poorly, maybe you just feel bad, someone gossiped about you, and again, we lose focus of our program, so we allow someone else to take our power. Our third communication pattern is using global terms. And if you're using global terms, you're saying things like, "you never," or "you always." We take one incident and make it sound like those behaviors invariably occur. And finally, when we distort messages, we refer to people and hear something differently than what's being said. So if my husband said, "I don't have time to walk tonight," if I was distorting that message, I would hear, "You don't care about me," or "You don't want to spend time with me." So we're hearing something different than what's being said. So how can we be top performers in conflict? Well, again, Dr. Tim Ursini in the Top Performer's Guide to Conflict gives us these ideas. Top performers connect with others. So while we can't change who we are, what we can control is our ability to adapt to other people's communication styles. Avoiding entitlement. I have to say this was a new concept for me personally, and I feel like I was pretty guilty of this. Entitlement is when we feel that we have a right to something. I've worked hard, so I have a right to this. And so that can really put off a very negative vibe. And so when we avoid entitlement, we stay focused on what we want to achieve and not what we feel entitled for. Top performers assume the best in others. They look for that and they respond to that by praising others. And finally, top performers keep things in perspective. So they're able to say, "You know what? I think I might be reacting," or "You know what? I think I'm using a negative communication style. Why don't I pull back? And in the grand scheme of things, I think I'm going to keep this situation in perspective." So as the great philosopher Plato said, "Know thyself." I hope that you're able to apply these concepts, because when you do, you will move forward in your career. So this is the third video that you've seen from me, and I hope that you've been able to take the ideas from the videos and apply them in your workplace. The one thing I do know about top performers is that they are constantly reinvesting in themselves, and that's why I created Mentor Me, the Inspired Leadership Program, how to step up, take charge, and leverage your best talents. And I've designed this program in a very flexible format, so it's available online for you as an independent study program. So take the next step in your career in developing your leadership. Find out more about Mentor Me, and when you do, you will develop into the leader you want to be.